Hi there, my name is Aaron Lanterman. I'm a professor of electrical and computer engineering at Georgia Tech, and this is the Polyvoks, a synthesizer that was born in the Soviet Union in 1982. We'll talk about it a little bit later in this lecture. So most of ECE3400 analog electronics deals with design at the transistor level. So you hook different transistors, BJTs or MOSFETs or whatever together to do different things, like build an operational amplifier. This is in contrast to something like my analog circuits for music synthesis class that mostly operates at the integrated circuit level. But here in ECE3400, I would like to take a break from transistor level design and talk about operational amplifiers. And I figured while we were on the topic of frequency responses in the context of BJT circuits, I thought it would be good to spend some time talking about the frequency response effects of non-ideal operational amplifiers. We'll start by exploring circuits in the non-inverting amplifier configuration, and we'll look at the inverting configuration in a later lecture. So when I say non-ideal, I specifically refer to the gain. Now, I'm still going to assume that we have zero output impedance, and I assume that we're going to have infinite input impedance, so there's no current flowing through the input terminals. And you can relax those assumptions and redo this kind of analysis. You just get more complicated looking formulas. So we're going to assume that the gain of the amplifier has a frequency response of some sort, and we're going to express that in the Laplace domain as this function capital AS. If you're not familiar with this Laplace domain notation, you can just imagine that S is a placeholder in which we're going to plug in j omega. So we're going to represent the input voltages to the op-amp and the output voltage in the Laplace domain. And notice here I'm using uppercase letters to represent signals in the Laplace domain and lowercase to represent signals in the time domain. So the usual approximations we make for op-amps have A considered to be infinite across the entire frequency range. Now the quote-unquote true frequency response of the op-amp is probably something immensely complicated, but we usually approximate it as just a one-pole low-pass filter with a DC gain that here we'll call A0 and a corner frequency, or you could call it the half-power cutoff frequency of omega naught. This is the way Marshall Leach usually writes this kind of frequency response in his notes. I often like to multiply the numerator and denominator by omega naught and write it like this. I'm going to define something called the gain bandwidth product. In terms of radians per second, we'll express that as omega x, and that's just the gain A naught times the cutoff frequency omega naught. Usually the gain bandwidth product is represented in hertz, so if we divided both sides of the expression by 2 pi, we could write the cutoff as f naught and the gain bandwidth product as fx. This model is sort of an aggregate of all of the various capacitors inside the op-amp, both parasitic capacitances and capacitors put in there deliberately, but it's usually dominated by a special capacitor that's placed inside the op-amp on purpose called a compensation capacitor. And if you look at something like the die for the 741 op-amp, and I should clarify, this is just one example die. I've seen other photographs of 741 dies that look different, even though they all have the same basic components. This entire mess here, this is the compensation capacitor. Look at how much space that takes up on the chip. Now, in my notes from the last time that Professor Marshall Leach taught this class, he said that the 741 had a compensation capacitance of around 50 picofarad, and something like the TL071, and equivalently the TL072 and the TL074 had compensation capacitances of something like 18 picofarad. But my Google ability seems to be failing me, and I can't seem to find specific details about either of those figures on various data sheets or websites or whatever. So if anyone can confirm or deny those kinds of figures, leave a comment below. And I should note that not all op-amps have built-in compensation capacitors. There are some op-amps that have pins that you're supposed to connect your own compensation capacitor to. And there are some op-amps like the CA3160 that's used in the Buchla 259 complex oscillator and its timbre circuitry that have some built-in compensation, but they have some external pins that you can add additional capacitance to if you want to for some application. So what would the frequency response A look like if I plugged in J omega for S and I particularly plug in omega X for S? So what does the frequency response look like at the gain bandwidth product? Well, if I were to plug J A omega naught in for S, then the omega naughts wind up canceling. A naught is a lot bigger than 1, so you wind up with A naught over something that's around A naught. So you wind up with something with around a magnitude of 1. So thinking about what the Bode plot looks like, we have a corner frequency at omega naught. We go from A0 down to 1, where the 1 happens at the frequency of omega x, the gain bandwidth product. And if we think about Bode plots, a ratio of gains corresponds to a ratio of frequencies. So if we wonder how this particular ratio of gains corresponds to this particular ratio of frequencies, remember omega x equals A naught times omega naught. So I could divide both sides of that original expression by omega naught and wind up with something like this. So we see they have this reciprocal relationship. So the slope here goes downward. So let's take a look at this 741 datasheet from Texas Instruments and do a search on the word gain. Let's see, large signal voltage gain, typical 200 volts per millivolt. So that's a gain of 200,000. And notice that's a typical figure. It gives a minimum of 50. So that's different by a factor of 4. And it doesn't even bother to give a maximum value. So that tells you this isn't a number that you should rely on in your design, and that's why these things are used with a lot of negative feedback. Now, if you go to Google and you ask it about the gain bandwidth product of a 741 op-amp, a bunch of sources will tell you that it's 1 megahertz, although I can't seem to actually find this number on any of the data sheets. But let's go with 1 megahertz. And we'll go with that DC gain of 200,000. Anyway, if we divide the gain bandwidth product by the DC gain, we wind up with 5 hertz. So that's a pretty low cutoff frequency. But of course, the whole point of an op-amp is you have oodles and oodles of gain, way more than you really need. And what you do is use negative feedback to trade off some of that gain for bandwidth. So let's see how that works out in your classic non-inverting amplifier configuration. So we're jamming the input directly into the positive terminal here, and we have some negative feedback with a feedback resistor going from the output to the negative terminal and a resistor we call R1 going from the negative terminal to ground. Now, in your traditional sophomore circuits class, we use the assumption that this gain is infinite over the full frequency range. So under those rules with negative feedback, basically the voltage here at the positive terminal winds up copied here at the negative terminal. But we're no longer assuming that A here is infinite, so we can't use that shortcut anymore. We have to compute things from scratch. So V plus is just going to be our input voltage VI. And what's at V minus? Well, it's going to be a portion of VO, but not all of VO. It's going to be a portion determined by this voltage divider. And so the voltage divider is going to have R1 in the numerator. That's what's going to ground. And then I sum the resistances in the denominator. And I'm going to call that fraction K. So K goes in here, and that's going to let us keep our formulas nice and compact. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this KV0 and move it over to the left-hand side. Along the way, I need to remember to multiply by A, and I only have VO terms on the left and VI on the right, so I'll factor out that VO. So now let me divide both sides of the equation by VI to get rid of VI on the right and write our actual gain factor. And I'll also divide both sides of the equation by 1 plus Ka. So we have this traditional feedback-looking form here. Okay, so let me divide the numerator and the denominator by A. So we wind up with A in just one location. And having it in this reciprocal form is particularly convenient, because if we look at what A is, we see we have this S plus omega naught in the numerator and this constant here in the denominator, but let me rewrite it like this. So I'll have 1 over A naught in front, and then I'll have S over omega naught plus 1. And when I take this and plug it in for this reciprocal form here, then I can write it like this and see that there's an S sitting here that is a minimal for rearrangement. So if I take this expression here and write it on the next slide, let me multiply that 1 over A naught through, and I'll also rearrange the terms. So I'll take the K and put that in front. I'll take this S over omega naught, multiply it by that 1 over omega naught, and I'll put it at the end, and then I'll have this 1 over omega naught term in the middle. And now let me multiply the numerator and the denominator by A naught to get it in this kind of form. And now let me divide the numerator and the denominator by this K A naught plus 1, so I can write it like this. And the reason I wanted to do that is I wanted to get it in this form of 1 plus S over a pole frequency, and then I have a constant on top here. So this is now in our canonical form for a first-order low-pass filter. So let me define the DC gain constant as AOF, so that's the thing on top, and our new pole associated with this configuration is this omega naught times this K A naught plus 1 here. So basically what we've done is we've taken the pole that was originally sitting at minus omega naught, and we've shoved it far, far, far to the left. So it was originally here. Let me try to make that a better X. That's a terrible X. Anyway, we've put it way out here someplace. We've put it at minus omega naught K A naught plus 1. So I added the F's to the subscript. The F stands for feedback to indicate that this is the new DC gain and the new corner frequency associated with the feedback configuration, in particular this non-inverting feedback configuration. We'll look at the inverting amplifier configuration in a future lecture, and you'll see that we get something very different. Okay, so let's think about this DC gain here for a bit. If the DC gain of our original amplifier, this A naught, goes off to infinity, then our DC gain for our non-inverting configuration has an interesting structure. Basically, if A naught is going off to infinity, K A naught plus 1 is going to be awfully close to K A naught. The plus 1 is going to seem insignificant. So if it is insignificant, then the A naughts actually cancel, and we wind up with our DC gain for the non-inverting configuration going to 1 over K. Well, if I go back and I substitute what we had for K, then we wind up with R1 plus RF over R1, which I could rewrite as 1 plus RF over R1. And that should be familiar from your sophomore circuits class like ECE3400. If we use our usual golden op-amp rule analysis where we assume that the voltage at the positive terminal is copied at the negative terminal, then we can write a Kirchhoff's current law equation here and come up with this expression. Okay, so the next thing I would like to do is compute a gain bandwidth product for our full non-inverting configuration. So if I take our A naught F and our omega naught F and multiply those together, these are the expressions we computed on the previous slides. Well, this K A naught plus 1 cancels with this K A naught plus 1, and I get A naught times omega naught. So that's the original gain bandwidth product of the op-amp itself. So we haven't lost any gain bandwidth product. Now, I want to emphasize that we've only shown this for this non-inverting configuration. In a future lecture, we'll see that the inverting configuration actually loses some of this gain bandwidth product. So thinking about this in terms of Bode plots, We lose DC gain, but in exchange, we increase this cutoff frequency. But we're still allowed to play along this line that goes down to the original gain bandwidth product, and we can decide what trade-off we want to make along that diagonal line by choosing the amount of feedback K according to the choice of R1 and RF that determine the voltage divider that controls the amount of feedback. What we'll see for the inverting configuration is we can't go quite all the way. So, at the beginning of the lecture, I promised you I would talk about the Polyvoks. Most voltage-controlled filters in music synthesizers consist of capacitors combined with variable gain elements like operational transconductance amplifiers. But if you look at the schematic of the VCF and the Polyvoks, there is a curious lack of capacitors. Basically, it uses a couple of highly specialized op-amps that have a third input pin in addition to your usual plus and minus voltage inputs. They have this ability to change the gain bandwidth product by controlling the amount of current being pulled out of that third pin. And I want to clarify that this is not an operational transconductance amplifier. This is something else that's deeply weird.